So right before we started this, I had a debate with my dad about what day of the week it was. He was adamant that it was Tuesday. I'm like, no, Dad, it's Wednesday, because on Wednesday life is crazy and Coach Arya has like a million webinars. So yeah.
I think count yourself lucky that you're trying to work out what day it is, because yesterday I couldn't work out what month we were. I was like, are we May or June? Are we May or June? I'm confused. So
yeah,
as long
it's
as
a
we're on the
daily
day
struggle.
of the week,
Well, I'm glad you worked out that it was the day that we're supposed to meet. And thank you and welcome to everyone who is watching us now or watching this later. My name is Magda. You probably know me since you clicked on this video. And with me is Naomi, who's joining me from France. Is that right?
Correct, yes. Naomi, who is English, you can very much tell by her accent, but who is very much French in here.
Very beautiful accent. So this is our next installment of Wonder with an O, Women and Wine, because we are women and we are drinking some wine. Cheers.
Cheers.
Which honestly, like today of all days, I need this. And we're going to wonder about stuff. So
first of all, what I'm wondering is, what wine are you drinking?
I am drinking an impression of a Super Tuscan. So it's actually quite an inexpensive wine. I forget what it's called. But I've recently fallen in love with, I've always liked Italian reds, but recently I'm really into Barolos and Barbarescos, and I was at the wine shop, and the nice man who got me addicted to them, he's like, well, you know what? Here's some cheap options that, if you aren't as refined, I'm like, I'm not refined. Give me the wine. So, but it's delicious.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm drinking what we call in France a piscine. So it's rosé wine with ice cubes in it.
How does that translate? It sounds like pissing.
Piscine, it means swimming pool.
So okay, that's much nicer than what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, a swimming pool of rosé. That's what it's called.
Okay. Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yes.
That sounds lovely. So why are we here? We are here because I decided that it's really cool how many wonderful women I know, and through work and through life. So I decided to interview them in different contexts every Wednesday. And here we are. So Naomi's my guest today.
On a Tuesday. No,
no,
your dad was wrong. Your dad was wrong.
Oh my God, the second you said that my matrix glitched, I'm like, holy fuck. Holy, that word that I didn't just say. Is it actually Tuesday? No, it's Wednesday. It is Wednesday. It's Wine Wednesday. It's Wonder Woman Wednesday. It's Wednesday. And we're gonna have a chat. We're going to get to know you a little bit. And it's been a very eventful week, month, day, hour, whatever. I have a lot of things on my mind that I want to chat to you about. So I'll let you introduce yourself, but kind of the primer for me is you are a coach, so that's how I came across you. But for today's conversation, at least for me, more importantly, you are a cool chick who's very outdoorsy, who loves to travel, speaks many languages, and climbs mountains. And for the topics that I wanted to chat about, I think that's more relevant. But as I'm talking, I'm thinking, one thing I've learned this week is coaching freaking applies to everything. So I'm sure we're going to circle back into coaching as well.
Yeah. So coaching's not a job, it's a way of life, isn't it? So I think how do I introduce myself? I think you did a pretty good job there. It's what we were saying just before. I'm a wanderer with an O, but also a wanderer with an A. I'm an explorer of inside and out. I love the outdoors and exploring, like we've discussed before in the past, but mountains, nature, anywhere I can get outside and be on my 2 feet, walking around with my tent in my backpack, and my little heater so I can eat some soup somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But I'm also a wanderer with an O. I think I always get them confused about which way around it is, but just thinking about things, people, how we work, how we how we get things done, and that's led me to be a coach. But that's kind of almost like a parallel, I guess.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, I'm English, but I've been living in France for like 18 or 19 years now, so I'm kind of more French. You'll find that I'll be asking you for words in English. I'll be going, how do we say that again? Yes, I get confused, and yeah, I love to travel the world, but I've learned over the last few months that we can also enjoy many other things. We don't have to be running around crazy, traveling from one place to the other. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
It's a good nutshell. And actually, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is, so this morning, I don't know if you were there, but we did a webinar on climate change. So it was a panel of different coaches. Peter Hawkins was the main speaker, and we talked about kind of the different phases of eco-awareness. I think he calls it eco-phases. Anyway, I can link to the webinar later because it was fascinating. But I've always considered myself pretty good with, like, pretty climate conscious, and as I get older, the better I'm becoming, very, very consciously. It's important to me. I stopped eating meat a couple of years ago. I eat eggs or cheese products occasionally, but like I would say I'm like 95% vegan, for many reasons, but one of those, when I learned about climate impact, it just got me. And anyway, so during this webinar today, I was really shocked to learn that I still felt inside that I wasn't doing enough and that I didn't know enough of my own impact on the planet. And that led me to start thinking, like, holy crap, like there's so many things that I just take for granted. We talked about even recording the webinar, the fact that this thing is getting recorded and that it's going to sit on a server somewhere. That is an environmental impact. Like it never dawned on me that, yeah, the server needs to have storage. It probably sacrificed land for that. It needs to be cooled. It takes energy, which who knows where that energy comes from. There's just so much around us that we take for granted. And, as someone who is in tune with herself because of your coachiness, and someone who is so outdoorsy and happiest with her backpack and little heater for soup, are you finding you're taking things for granted? Are you discovering those things, or have you reached a different level of enlightenment than the rest of us?
You've started with a very heavy question. I'm going to have to take a sip of wine straight.
It's evening for you. The fact that this is your first glass of wine is not my fault, my friend.
Yeah, it's gone 10 o'clock now. So it's a great question. No, I think I take things for granted like we all do, because I think I'm unaware of, like like you said, of many things that you just, I did know that about the recording and stuff of data, and I tried to be conscious of deleting things on email and things that I stock and stuff like that on the computer. But it just goes so far. And I think it's really interesting because I can kind of see both sides of the coin in terms of, yes, it goes so far, and yet like our modern world is what it is, and it has evolved into what it is, and that those are our current practices and stuff, and absolutely we need to pay attention to so many things, but at the same time we have to learn to live with those and sort of find our best way within that. But I think in a way that's why I feel so comfortable when I'm out in the middle of nowhere with a backpack and zero waste. I'd get water from the stream and heat it on a little heater with a fire if I can, but if not, I've got like a little gas heater, but that's got a canister that you've got to throw away. But I carry all of the waste with me, like a empty gas cylinder or any food wastage. I always carry with me and get rid of it wherever I can in the next village. But I kind of feel like I'm not using electricity from my house. I'm not taking my car somewhere. I'm not, and I think I almost feel at peace in that kind of a space because I'm not thinking or worrying about that. But I think in our everyday lives, it's you have to kind of take it step by step. And I think 5 years ago, none of us used to, I don't know what you call it in English when you
there you go, you told me you're gonna do it.
I told you I was going to say. It's called tri sélectif in French, so it's where you put the plastic into one bin,
recycling.
Glass. Recycling, there we go. It's not a complicated word, but
no, that's
okay. Yeah, 5 years ago, not everyone recycled, did they? But now it's just like second nature. So I think my hope is that small things like that, just like as we go, we're going to pick them up. But I'm sure that you could teach me many things that I'm completely unaware of in terms of
I'll do my best.
Yeah, and I missed this morning. I saw the invite yesterday. I was in a meeting. I saw it. Like I love Peter Hawkins. I've bought twice the same book of his because I lost it once on a trip to my parents. So I bought the same book again, but it's one of his team coaching books. So I'll check it out.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, I'll put the link because he's wonderful. He did a few webinars with us. He's going to do more. He just wrapped up doing a systemic coaching training program with Coach Arya. He's a good friend of ours, and man, it's every time I listen to him, I get inspired, and then I wonder, like, how is that possible? You're not supposed to be that engaged, you know. It's the same topic technically. It's always systemic coaching, but he's pretty brilliant. But yeah, speaking of recycling, it's so funny. Like, I'll rewind with this lockdown mess. I keep going into extremes of emotions. So my day-to-day life has not changed very much. I work from home. I have been for years. I'm not a partier. I did that in my 20s. So I'm very happy not seeing people and hanging out with my cat and a glass of wine. Cat, served multiple, and dog. Exactly, Sailor. He's on a walk with my sister. He'll be back here shortly. But, you know, so I'm pretty content in general anyway. But as this is going on, as I'm learning new things and I'm trying new things like this interview, I'm finding that I'm either like very positive because I'm like, oh yes, I'm coping, or yes, I'm turning off my lights and being better for the environment, like whatever, these little things that come into my head and I'm really, really satisfied. And then on the other hand, I get completely depressed. Like when you just said recycling, I should be like, yeah, I'll teach you this and this, and I compost as well. But like in the US, for example, I don't know how it is in France, I'm guessing better, but in the US, we don't actually recycle very much. Not that people don't recycle, the country, because China stopped buying our recycling. So now a lot of our recycling goes into landfill anyway. And it just like, it feels sometimes like I'm in this damned if you do, damned if you don't world. And it gets pretty freaking depressing. And, you know, same with even these calls. This morning, I changed my lights as we were talking, and I moved because I used this light yesterday for a conversation. And this morning, a coworker emailed me and said, "Hey, Magda, are you sick?" And then I just realized as we were talking that I looked a little gray. So I'm like, oh, I think it's the light. Maybe it's not as good as I thought. And it's just this self-criticalness has really elevated in me. And again, I go between, yes, it was a great conversation. I learned so much from Naomi, and I hope someone watched and liked it. And I'm like, yes, good job. And then I go, oh crap, like I was moving around and the light was shit, and I said shit 4 times now. I mean, I don't know, like, are you finding emotional changes in all this craziness?
Yeah, and I think thank you for sharing that, because I think it's I find it really reassuring when we're able to listen and hear other people share that with me. So my sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, emotional, spiritual, like, partner is my sister. She, like, we are best friends. We are like, we share. Sometimes she's like, we're talking, sometimes she says, overshare, stop.
TMI.
But we call each other sort of like on a daily basis, and both of us work from home, as it were, anyway. So we've been doing it from before lockdown, but I think it was last week, end of last week, she rang me and she was just like, this is just such an emotional yo-yo. Exactly what you're saying, such an emotional yo-yo. And I think because of the fact that we've slowed down, because of the fact that we've taken the time to do things differently, to create awareness for ourselves about things that we didn't have time to create awareness for before, we've reached, like you said, complete highs of like really sort of feeling connected with ourselves and really like feeling that we're getting things done and happy with ourselves. And then it's like when the next day happens and something doesn't go in that direction, well, it's kind of like the higher you've been, the further you have to fall. And that's why, I mean, that's my personal and my sister's take on it, is that the more we're sort of moving along these beautiful paths that we're moving on, and learning more about ourselves and understanding more about ourselves, then if you have a bad day, then it's going to be worse than it was before, because you've got further to fall from. So I completely and utterly hear where you're coming from.
Okay, I'm not crazy. That's good to know.
Not crazy. Or if you are, then both my sister and I are as well, which actually could be.
I think it's possible, to be honest. I don't know. No, but look, it's like you said, it's good to hear someone else who relates to it, because the other emotion that comes up for me a lot lately is guilt. And it has to do with what we just talked about. That's why I bring it up, because, it's about these taking the things for granted and not realizing just how good I have it. And then having these emotional swings, which is also a privilege. And the fact that before all this, I got to work from home, and I will continue. Like everything, the fact that I could change my freaking light because I didn't like how, like, it's just, there's so many things that are in my realm of control or comfort or whatever, that, as the world is crumbling around us a little bit, I do find myself kind of in that rut because of the emotional roller coaster, but also just guilt for, how am I like better than somebody else to have all this privilege or this comfort or this whatever. And this morning I was listening to the radio and about the super cyclone that's happening in the Bengal and Bangladesh and India being impacted, and they were talking to people in a fishing village where they've literally been starving on the streets because they haven't been able to fish, and day laborers who they literally don't have food on day-to-day basis. And now with this cyclone, these people who already were in like the most terrible situation, they are now being put into shelters that were being used as quarantines for COVID, which is like, take them into the hotbed. So it's just like, crap, like how bad can it get? And here I am freaking, downstairs making my coffee with my nice grinder, with my AirPods on, listening to NPR before I do a webinar for the company that I'm a CEO of. Like, I just felt like, oh my Lord, shut the F up, Magda. Like, you cannot feel bad for yourself ever about anything.
Yeah, I hear you completely, but I think you kind of answered your own question.
Did I?
In the those feelings of guilt don't get us anywhere. I think some of the examples that you were giving kind of really sparked like a memory in my mind of, I think I told you last time we had a chat about when I traveled in South America for 6 months, and I traveled through some of the poorest countries in South America, like Bolivia, or sort of like southern Patagonia between Chile and Argentina. And we went through some villages, sort of like villages in the foothills of volcanoes and things like that, that had seen either volcano eruptions, landslides, earthquakes, natural disasters that had completely wiped out the whole village. And so you'd arrive somewhere along the road and you'd see sort of like almost like a graveyard of a village, just sort of like a few walls remaining, sort of what looks like the sort of outline of a village. And then you'd go a couple of kilometers, a couple of miles along, and there'd be another one, a new one. And they just, we talked to locals and stuff. We stayed with locals and that had nothing compared to it, everything that you were just talking about, which I have the same gratefulness and for that luxury on a daily basis, to be able to get up, and I'm not a coffee drinker, but to have my lovely cup of Earl Grey in the morning.
Hey, you are English.
Yes, I am. But those that had nothing would share everything with us, and they didn't think twice about the fact that they lived in difficult situations. And the landslide that came through this particular village that I had in mind, like a couple of years beforehand, and half of them had lost members of their families and all of their jobs, had to rebuild everything. And they just, in France we have an expression, c'est la vie, it's life, and we move on, kind of thing. And the strength, like, of character and of just like no moaning, no complaining, no, like, it is what it is. And we built, we've learned from that. We built, how much they learn in terms of they just build the village a little bit down the line, down the road. Not so much, but it's just, I'm not sure how much, I mean, I completely hear you, but I'm not sure how much our guilt, in fact, of the luck that we have helps those that don't have the same luxury as us. And I think that what we can learn from that is learning the sort of like simpler lessons of life from those that have less, but also finding ways like, what you're doing and what I'm doing in our daily jobs to give back to those that I guess have less. I don't know. That's how I see it, but I'm not sure if it's, I don't know. What do you think?
Yes, you make a point. Yes, we need to do what we can. It's just hard. It's hard to reconcile, right? And it's just one of those things. Also with coaching, presence is very important, both in terms of your presence as well as in terms of, focusing the client on what is happening today, what can work to help them get to where they want to be. You don't focus on the past. You don't, you don't overanalyze that stuff. And that's also been a theme, like focusing on the present. And it's great. And that's kind of what helps me anchor a little bit. But I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying it's hard to reconcile. And it's hard to, I don't know, get excited about stuff when I know that like there's this imminent stuff, cataclysm. I don't know what to call it, even disasters, stuff that we know is going to happen. It's like, it's one thing if a meteor hit tomorrow and we're surprised, whereas there's visible all around. This is not new, right? There's visible poverty. There's visible, like, with this super cyclone coming, like they know it's going to hit. It's already, they have data on this stuff, and it's gonna happen. People are going to die, and I mean, I can't do anything about it, so I probably shouldn't feel guilty about it because I literally can't make a cyclone change. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Maybe I shouldn't drink the wine. Maybe we'll skip the wine. It kills my brain.
It's one of the, I don't know, it's one of the existential questions of life, isn't it? And I think what's really interesting though is, if you talk about coaching, you mentioned from where you are to where you want to be. What makes the difference between where you are to where you want to be is what you're prepared to do. And the effort that you're prepared to put in, and how prepared you are to step out of your comfort zone. And I don't know, I mean, we're not in a coaching session, but it sounds like the thoughts that you're going through, which I have the same, and I've had them before and I'll have them again. You're stepping slightly out of your normal comfort zone in terms of thinking about these situations and how they make you feel and what you can do about them. So there's awareness being created for you, and new understanding of how you want to deal with that. So it's the question is, like you say, is there something that you can do? If there isn't, then how do then if there isn't something physically or mentally that you can do, then what is it that you need to accept, or what is it that but great question.
You're right. It is a self-coaching thing that's happening in my head. Slightly
kind of a good coach if you're self-coaching.
Yeah. So actually, I don't want to talk about training here because it's not the thing, but part of kind of how we approach training new coaches, self-coaching is actually a really big part of that. And like, I can do the coaching thing, but I'm not great at it one-on-one because I really get excited. I have a very hard time separating myself from the client, so I'm not the best one-on-one coach. But coaching skills and coaching principles for me have been life-changing, especially self-coaching. Like it's, for me, like my walking with my dog, that's my self-coaching time because my mind just clears, and whatever it is, like I go through the conversation. So I talk to myself too. I am a crazy person, that's established already. But at least now there's structure to it.
Yeah, I think it came to my mind when you were talking about that earlier. Like, I don't know what your routine is in the morning, but I like to get up really early before anyone else is awake and I'll take the time I can get. But like the last 2 days, for example, I've got up at just before 6 because the sun rises at just after 6 here in France. Watch the sunrise and then just sit. I mean, we're lucky enough again, gratitude that it's really warm at the moment. So you can sit outside at 6 o'clock in the morning and just literally watch the birds flying in, landing on the trees, taking off again. Like I've never in my life, like I've literally seen flowers grow in the last 2 months. Like
That's lovely.
from one day to the next, just like seeing how, oh, that wasn't there yesterday, and there's just like a flower in complete. I mean, it's just amazing. And that time, like on my own, is really, really important to me. That like free, I call it free time, my free time. Just to sort of like wander with an O, reflect, but not too much. And like in the morning, that early, you've not got like everything from the day that is really sort of like, you're not in that sort of like move of going from one to the other and like a meeting and a call and a webinar and whatever. That early in the morning, normally your brain is a bit switched off after a good night's sleep, and it's like quite refreshing. I always sort of just like take blank sheets of paper, and I've got like, they're literally right here by me. I always have them with me. Just color onto blank paper and just sort of like, brain dump, jot down whatever's in my head, and it kind of helps to get rid of some of the questions.
Morning pages.
Yeah, some of the questions that
Love
can't
it.
be answered, that I've tried to answer many times, or that I've still not found the answer to. So who knows?
That's a great routine. I have one of my cats is very, very loud, and if I don't get up at the time that he wants to be fed, he will be not just in my face, like he will be meowing very, very loudly and maybe even smacking you. So
What time does it get up?
oh, that's the good thing, at least 7. So it's not,
Okay.
nothing unreasonable. But yeah, I tried morning pages for a while, but he's like, no, feed me now. So that's not possible. But you know how I promised you an easy conversation? We can talk about nature versus nurture next. All the easy ones. As you were talking, I'm just thinking like, I love just sitting in the garden or going for a walk. Like I really enjoy being outside. And if it's warm, I love having my glass of rosé and just sitting on the deck and look at the squirrels play. Those kinds of things, yes, I can do even for like an hour, let's say up to an hour, because I tend to be restless in terms of when I don't utilize my time to do something that I deem productive. I feel like I'm wasting my life. And it's so funny because I don't judge others for doing that. I just can't do it for myself. And I say it's nature versus nurture because, like, my mom or my sister can watch TV for hours or just do nothing. Like, whereas my dad and I, we have the idle hand syndrome. It's like my dad literally now invents projects because he had built a house, he did all the improvements. Recently, he built a garage so he could buy a lift so he can change the brakes and whatnot in his car because it's cheaper in the long term. It's not, but he just wanted a project. And you know what? I laugh at him when he does it, but I totally relate because right after this, I'm going to go and stain my deck because I want to be outside, but I'm like, no, I have too much to do. I need to make sure that I'm using my time. So, deep breath. Why is that, do you think? Why am I not okay with myself doing nothing?
Your questions you're on fire tonight. Great questions. Great questions. Why is that? I don't know. Instinctively, because again, I'm very much sharing your feelings here tonight. Instinctively, I think it comes back to the guilt thing because so it's really interesting. I've been in lockdown with my in-laws for the last 2 months. So my in-laws are a little bit like your sister and your mum. So, they can watch TV and chill and stuff and
hang out
and do sort of like crosswords and stuff. And they're cool with that. My family, it's like, so we get up. If I want free time, I have to get up really, really early because we all go together to watch the sunrise on the beach. And then we go for a 10-kilometer walk. And then we're going to go play tennis. And then we're going to go play golf. And then we're going to go. It's like we just don't stop. It's just nonstop all day. So I'm trying to like find my footing between those two, trying to find like a balance between that. But I think when I went traveling in South America 3 years ago, that really helped me. It really taught me to slow down and to learn not to have to do something, not to have to always be reading, always be, even if it was like free time, relaxing time, not to always have to be, like you said, being outside. Like this morning, I was outside in the garden and I was de-weeding it's like, why could I not just be out there and not
And just
do it?
sit.
But I think it comes to a guilt of like, what could I be doing that I'm not doing? And also potentially, I don't know, the fear of if you don't do anything, then you're within your own head and having to have those conversations or think about those things that you don't necessarily want to think about. And I think that's where,
Interesting.
yeah, I think that's where like I've really been working on my meditation practice recently. And I think recently for the last year and a half. And I think since I've started to really get a grip on that, I found it easier to do nothing and to enjoy that nothing time, because my mind is not constantly, because if I do nothing, then I'll just sit there and then after 5 minutes, I'm like, yes, okay, let's do something. like you kind of thing.
Enough of nothing.
Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe a mix of those things. Again, you're asking me questions. I have no idea. I'm just giving you my my take.
Look, hence the wonder, right? This is not a answer, women and wine. It's a wonder.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Very true.
All in its time. We will figure out these existential questions.
One thing.
So, yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say one thing I was going to say, because mentioning the wonder and the wonder that I was talking about with the A is that's the one time where I never worry about that. So when I go walking, and I've done hikes for 2 days up to a couple of weeks at a time with a backpack on my back and the tent. When I'm doing that, I'm not thinking like when I'm walking, I need my phone out, I need to be calling someone or listening to music or whatever. I'm just walking, and that's all I'm doing, and I'm looking around me, and that's the one time I think where, I mean, obviously the walking is an activity in itself, as it were, but generally, I'm not rushing to get from point A in the morning to the campsite wherever I'm staying in the evening. And it's really, again, a moment where you can just let go of all of that and just, I guess, simply be rather than be doing. I don't know. But that's why I love it so much.
In a couple of weeks, I'm going to interview my friend Lee, who I think you meet because she loves walking. She literally walked across New Zealand. Sorry, from one end to the other. And then after a couple of months, she's like, I think I'm going to walk the US. So she did the whole Mexico to Canada thing.
Wow.
Very cool chick. But I would love to ask her some of these questions because I'm not that. I'm a glamper, but at the same time, the thing is like, okay, I know we're live and hopefully no one's seeing this part because whatever, they know. You know what? I developed a brand recently. They know that I'm crazy animal lady, that I love my wine. And I think the third one is I only wash my hair when I have to. And to go with that is I don't mind being dirty. Like I think I would be a good long-term hiker, walker, because
absolutely.
Gosh, I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. I do have great personal hygiene. That's not what I meant. I just mean like it's okay to be one with nature and roll around in dirt and mud every now and then. But yeah, so it must be, as I'm just thinking, like it must be a mental thing because maybe it is that fear of just like being alone with my thoughts. I don't know.
I don't know, but I wouldn't mock yourself on the hygiene thing. Is you realize when you go hiking how we showered and bath too much. Honestly, you realize that you don't need to take a shower twice a day. That you don't, I mean, okay, when we were in Patagonia, in the middle of nowhere in ice fields, and we hadn't had a shower for 5 days, and you didn't want to go anywhere near any of the water because it's ice cold. Then you're kind of like, yes, I could probably do with with some kind of a wash, but I mean, totally get you on the hair when you're hiking. It's just like it's not important. At the end of the day, it's not. And
When
none
I'm
of it is.
hiking, it's always.
It's not important.
I know it's
But
not. I'm just saying it's not only. It's not when I'm hiking. Like I don't. Yeah. Anyway, it's all right. It's all right. I can feel my sister is across the house. I can feel her eyes rolling and saying, Magda, when was your last shower this week? Or was it even this week or something like that?
do you feel
Yeah.
good? Do you feel good?
Yeah.
Then there you go. There's your answer.
Maybe I'm just overthinking life.
That's definitely two of it. It's funny because I definitely overthink life all the time. But when you hear someone else overthinking, it's easier to give, if you want, we can go through a list of things that I overthink, and then you can give me advice. It's like it's so much easier to give someone else advice. That's why when you coach, when coaching, I always ask, well, what would you tell a friend, kind of thing. It's so much easier to see it from a different perspective, isn't it? But when you're in your own head, it's just like, yeah.
What do you do?
Yes.
Yeah.
How's your emotional yo-yo now?
Oh, look, right now I'm great. I have a glass of wine. I'm talking to a nice person. I'm thinking about travel and rolling in dirt. Yeah. Sailor's back. He's on the floor. I'm in a good place in the yo-yo. Talk to me in like 3 hours. um, so okay, we've been chatting for about half an hour, so I want to wrap things up at some point. But what's funny? We didn't actually talk about the professional bit of you and what you do. So I want to make sure that we have a chance to do that. And you are a coach. That's how we got connected. And you do something very special. You work with your clients out of doors as well. Can you tell us about this?
It's all very recent, to be honest with you. In terms of what I actually do with my coaching, is because I realized when was this? I carry on training all the time and doing loads of training courses and trying to learn as much as I can about myself, and keep growing and keep just creating awareness, I guess, about who I am and how I tick and how I roll. And I think I kind of really started to own my I'm an explorer hat. And I went to literally just before lockdown, I went to Ecuador in January, tried to climb a mountain 6,000 meters up, and I'm just in my element. I just absolutely love it. It's just what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to be. Like, I was out there in January, and I lost my grandma. My grandma died when I was out there, and it was like the saddest thing ever. And yet I was in the most beautiful, beautiful place. And I think I told you about this last time we had a chat. Actually, the mountain I was at is right on the equator, so it's further from the center of the earth than any other point on Earth. In terms of, it's the mountain that is the most on the equator. So in terms of distance from the center of the Earth, it's closer to the stars than Everest, for example. So it's like the highest point on the Earth if you're taking from the center of the Earth. And so I was in the middle of nowhere up this, like, I was 5,000 meters up or something at base camp in the middle of nowhere, and get a text from my mum's like, can you ring me? And I knew straight away that's what it was. And really weirdly, just felt really connected and really grounded to my nana, and to the fact that everything was okay, kind of thing. And I think I've gone really off subject here. I hear you. But it just being outside and being in such a beautiful place and feeling really connected to nature, really connected to myself, just made me think, like, okay, this is what you're supposed to do. This is your thing, kind of thing. Like, you connect to people. And I took that even a step further in the language of it. I connect to, my second name is Alma, which means soul in Spanish. And my great grandma, who apparently, according to my grandparents, according to my dad, who was really close to her, apparently I'm very much like her. Strong character, very stubborn. My dad said, I'm like, no, that's not like me. But yeah, kind of just said that, yeah, I think I'm a soul searcher. I'm an explorer of nature, but an explorer of the soul as well. So I'm trying to find a way to sort of combine helping people search for their soul, what it is that they, you know, the sense that they want to make of it, whilst trying to do the same thing for myself, because I ain't got all the answers over here. Whilst being outside in nature. So it's kind of starting step by step by either one or the other, nature or soul. You know, it can be online or face to face when we're allowed to, or just going out for a hike or a trek or a project. You know, people ring me and they're like, yeah, I've got this project and no one else wants to do it. Would you like to do it? And I'm like, yeah, sounds like
Why not?
Sounds like a plan. Yeah. This the most recent one is a rock face in south of France that we want to cross 4 days. It's only 4 days, but there's no water points. So we have to find a way of either carrying all the water that we want or finding a little spring and making putting a little drip underneath to get enough water out. But yeah, I've rambled a lot, but I'm trying to find a way to mix what it is that I love, which is people, and therefore, you know, their soul and what it is that makes sense to them and how they want to move forward on a path. And it kind of turns out that when you're on a path, well, you might as well make it a real one and make it one that you're walking along, kind of thing. So yeah, don't know if that made any sense, but
it does. I just think it'd be really, really cool. You should do something where you take people on an actual path while you're taking them on a path of self-development for like a week on a trek. That would be cool.
It's in my plan. It's all in my, you can't see them here, but I've got piles and piles of folders and just trying to find the right way to make that work. And I think it's what I kind of in a way already do when I go on my hikes and meet. Quite often I go alone, but meet people on the way, and you just like have the most amazing connections with people. And the last hike I went on, I met a guy that was 88 years old, and he was doing 25 kilometers a day on this hike. I mean, God. 88 years old.
And good for him, man. That's my hero.
Do you know what he said? He was like, a glass of red wine a day.
Hey, I'm way ahead of him.
He was very French. He was like, a glass of red wine a day and you will be fine. I was like, okay, I'll take that advice.
Good man. I like it. Actually, I did hear that. There's a common thread, except for like the Japanese village that lives forever. When they're at, oh gosh, what are they called? Blue something. Yeah, I'm talking about the communities that live like the longest. They talked about that community is one common thread. Glass of red wine was another big common thread, and eating lots of vegetables.
Sounds good to me.
So I think I'm on a good path. Cool. Naomi, this has been lovely.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, which I'm sure they will because you're amazing, I will definitely tag you when I figure out how to share this video, because in many ways I'm tech savvy, and other ones I'm like, maybe I'm worse than 88-year-olds. So, but we'll figure it out between us.
Too long though. Don't stock it for too long. Remember the environment.
Right. Well, hold on. It's already there. Oh, great. Now you got. I'm going to figure out what is the most efficient. I'm pretty sure it's going to live on LinkedIn anyway, so I'm pretty sure I can't do anything about that. I don't know. Whatever. Thanks, Naomi. But it looks like Naomi is having a glitch in her matrix, so I'm going to wait like 2 more seconds or like 20, see if she comes back. And if she doesn't, I'm going to end the stream. Yep, she's gone. That's all right. Thanks for watching, everyone.